Thank you all for coming. We continue to look at opportunities to be engaged with the community. I know I repeat this often. I truly appreciate your cooperation. It means a lot to me that you're helping us continue to communicate with our constituency, the public. Our mission as a government is critically important, so we always look for other ways to engage our community and get our messaging out there. We are continuing to do these briefings on a weekly basis. I don't believe we should skip them. As you recognize, last week we had a fill-in, and Councilwoman Janet Miller did a fantastic filling in. We do that because I do not want to see these opportunities skipped. We want to continue to communicate with the public. I had the opportunity to sit in on the interviews for the candidates for police chief, so I certainly appreciate Councilmember Miller able to step in and do the briefing for the city last week. I know we have Councilmember Brian Fry that's with us today at this briefing. I think he reminded me he hasn't missed one yet. So, did you miss one? All right. He does a great job, and so we appreciate that. In addition to the regular access provided by the news media and the stories that are shared, the city also shares directly with our own City 7. We have Facebook, YouTube, and Wichita.gov, and so as I mentioned, we are always looking for opportunities to communicate with the public our concerns, our mission, and the important work that we do here. None really more important than what we're going through right now. We are fortunate to have a very capable city manager that's helping us through this process of looking for the next police chief. And Robert Layton is going to share the finalist candidates and maybe talk a little bit about the process that we're going to continue to carry out going forward. Would just remind folks that with our form of government, and we really encourage input from all of the stakeholders, but with our form of government, the mayor and the council have one employee. Our employee is Robert Layton, and then he carries out the mission, and he is over all of the other city employees. And I think that's important to recognize that, because it's a system that works for us, and it's one that we're not ready or willing or encouraging to change at this point. But we do want to recognize that we're very open to the input. So, Mr. Layton, if you would, where did he go? Did he run off already? No, scared him off. I said good things about him even. Thank you,
Mayor. Hopefully the soundbite for today is when he said capable city manager Robert Layton. That's what I want everyone to remember. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. Mayor, thank you for the introduction. I really appreciate it. And you're right, this is an exciting time for us because today I'm going to announce the 3 finalists for the police chief position. I want to talk about, first of all, though, the process that got us here, because it's pretty robust and it's more extensive than any process I've ever followed for the appointment of a department director here or any other time in my career. Just a reminder that we started off with organizational assessment of the police department that was performed by Wichita State University. I announced that we were going to do that after the retirement of Chief Norman Williams last year. From that point, we then followed the recommendations of that assessment and have tried to adhere to it as closely as possible. They gave a number of recommendations regarding the profile for a new chief, and we took advantage of those comments in terms of putting a profile together for the position. They also had advised that we have an outside recruiting firm that help us with this process, one that is well-versed in police recruitment And so we went out for proposals, and we hired the International Association of Chiefs of Police to help us identify candidates and to get us through the early part of the process. They brought us a number of candidates, and at that point I then convened a citizens advisory group, 8 people, and we released the names of those folks about a week ago. Those 8 people helped get down to a group of 5 semifinalists, and then we vetted those finalists, and then the committee met, had interviews with those 5 semifinalists, and then we asked for some additional input. And so we had a group of city department directors that met with them. We had regional law enforcement officials that also met with them. We had members of the police department that were involved in the interviews, and then the mayor and vice mayor also sat with candidates and spent some time asking them questions. I took input from all of those groups and got us to the point where we are today, and that's the announcement of the 3 finalists. The first finalist is an individual from Allentown, Pennsylvania, where he serves as police chief. His name is Joel Fitzgerald. He has a strong background in police work, including a number of years with the Philadelphia Police Department. Second person, it should be familiar to a lot of folks in the community, Terry Moses, who is currently the Executive Director of Safety Services with Wichita Public Schools. Terry had a long career with the Wichita Police Department before she retired and went to work for the Wichita Public Schools. And then the last candidate is Gregory Stevens. He's Assistant Police Chief in Lubbock, Texas. And he also has had a long career both with Lubbock as well as in the military, but in special police-related functions in the military. So all of them bring extensive law enforcement backgrounds to the interview process. So what's the next step? WSU had recommended that we also have a process for community input before I make a final decision, and we're now going to announce that process has been established. The 3 candidates will be available for the public on August 31st. And we'll have a public forum, and actually it's multiple public forums, from 6:30 to 9:30 on the 31st. It'll be at the convention hall in C2. The first hour will be devoted to a candidate, question and answers for that candidate, and then that'll follow. So that's 6:30 to 7:30. Second candidate from 7:30 to 8:30, and the last from 8:30 to 9:30. We are soliciting questions from the public, and we ask folks to send those questions to us via our website, as well as Activate Wichita. We'll set up a question there, or a place on Activate Wichita, so folks can send us questions. We'll also take questions from the floor as time permits. So I'd like to have a significant number of questions that we can ask all of the candidates that we get through the social media and our electronic means, but I'm sure there are people who want to ask follow-up questions or specific questions, and we'll try to allow time for that during the forums as well. Great opportunity, again, for the community to follow, not just follow the process, but to have some input. And they'll also have input cards that they can fill out at the end of the session. And that I'll look at all of those cards again before I finalize my decision. Last thing I want to talk about is just a reminder of the qualities that we agreed to look for in a new chief, and this came out of the WSU assessment. We want someone that is committed to collaborative working relationships inside the department as well as outside the department. We want someone who is innovative, to kind of use an old phrase, out-of-the-box thinker, someone who is well-versed in policing as it is developing in this country today, someone with strong communication skills. We want an exemplary leader and someone who can, again, as I said, take us to the next level as a police department and build on the strengths that we have currently. Someone who is inclusive in their decision-making process, someone that has a proven track record, someone who is data-driven in their decision-making, and then also is strategic in their thinking and knows how to implement a strategic plan. So those are the qualities I'm looking for in a chief. I think we have 3 great candidates that will be able to speak to the community on those issues. And I'm looking forward to the community forum on the 31st and to making an announcement sometime, hopefully in early September, on the final person to serve as the leader for 2015 for our police department. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have regarding process.
I was going to ask you originally, a couple weeks ago, you said you would announce the top 2 candidates.
Yes.
We have top 3. Can you describe or explain why that is?
I just can't count, and so I messed up. That's right. Not as capable as the mayor thought I was. No, what happened was I went through the process. It was my intention to have 2 candidates. And as we went through the process, I found that these 3 names kind of rose through the interview process. Remember, I had a lot of people providing input. And I don't think there was a clear delineation between these 3 candidates, to the point where I thought it was better for us and for the community to have the ability to talk to all 3 before I make a decision. I think you'll find each of them have their own strengths, and it'll be a good process, I think.
Robert, I have a question on Joel Fitzgerald. I know there's some controversy with his son pointing a weapon in a road rage incident at officers. Has he been fully vetted? Has the son been vetted?
Yep. Yes, they have. In fact, that was the role of our consultant, was to make us aware of background information on all the candidates. I know some about that incident, and I think that's, again, something that people can feel free to ask Mr. Fitzgerald about.
But you don't see any red flags there?
I do not based on the information I have in the incident. Yep.
Bob, during that public forum, each candidate will have his own time slot, his or her own time slot. Will they each be asked the same questions, or will it each be different?
It'll be a little bit of both. What I'd like to do is have a base set of questions that come into us in advance that we can ask all of the candidates, so we have some standard questions that way. But then again, especially from the floor, I'm sure there are going to be questions specifically for individuals, and I'm allowing that to happen as well.
When you talk about thinking outside the box and making sure the police department moves in the best direction, some people have said, well, why would you want someone who was once inside the police department? Why wouldn't you want to bring in someone new?
Sure. I don't, I always question when people say that, because you can be inside an organization and still have a lot of ideas on how you want to move forward that doesn't necessarily represent moving forward in a way similar to where we've been. And that will be a question that people can ask Terry Moses when we have the forum on the 31st.
It's been said that you have the, correct me if I'm wrong, you have the final say on this, choosing this position.
Right.
But how much? I mean, obviously you still take information in and input. How much input does the council, and particularly the head member of the council, the mayor, have in your decision?
The mayor and council will have exposure to all the candidates, and they will provide me feedback. And that feedback is as important as what I receive from the law enforcement folks that have been involved, both internally and externally, as important as the community feedback. I take all of it into consideration, and I don't say that I weight anything heavier one way or the other.
Gotcha. So the council's input is not weighted any heavier than any other sector?
Right, and I'm a little nervous saying that since 4 of them are here, but no, I don't. I take everything that I hear from the community and from inside this building, including from the council. I take all of that seriously as I weigh my options.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about why we don't have a current member of the department as a finalist?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. We had a limited number of applicants, and at this point, I feel that these are the 3 people that are best qualified to take us in a direction that we want to go. And at that, I'm really not comfortable talking about any other candidates, whether inside or external.
Was the WSU survey instrumental in maybe ruling out somebody who's already...
No, not at all. No, as I said, because you've got someone who was inside the department, and we looked hard more at their vision and where they wanted the department to go.
How many applications came in?
I don't have the exact number, Lily. There was over 30. Somewhere between 30 and 35. I just don't remember the exact number.
Of the semifinalists, the two that were not continuing on as finalists, where were they from?
I'm not going to answer that.
Of the two that were not chosen, why were they not chosen?
They probably, no, I shouldn't say probably, they did not meet the profile as closely as these three finalists. And again, that profile is really important because it was community driven. Any other questions? Mayor, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Bob. We did have a couple other council members join us. The Vice Mayor, James Clendenin, and everyone's favorite, Councilmember Miller, joined us. Don't share the nice comments I made about her because I'm trying to keep our relationship at a distance. Yeah, Lily.
Mayor, could you just give us some of your insight from last week when you did have those interviews, just your reaction to that process and the three finalists that are before us?
We have great candidates, and any of the final three would make a terrific police chief. And so looking forward to the process as it gets carried out and have full confidence that Bob will choose a terrific police chief, but he has three really good candidates to choose from, so it's kind of hard to mess that process up going forward. He's going to make a good decision. How it fits our community will be interesting as we get the community's input, and looking forward to that. I can tell you in my 8 years as a council member, and I've said this before, if you look at the positions that we have sought and hired in this organization since my 10 years as a council member, I think our city manager's strength is selecting the right team, and he's demonstrated that a number of times. We have some terrific folks that we have brought into this organization that have shown capable of carrying out our mission and do it in a great fashion, and that's certainly one of Bob's strengths, is finding that right team and bringing them in here. I'm tired of saying good things about Bob, so no more questions about Bob and his talent.
And Mayor, you've had a chance to talk to all three candidates, correct?
I had an opportunity to interview the final five, I was part of that interview process.
And Jeff, I don't know if this was asked, I'm sorry to step out for a second, but how many different panels were there again that the top five?
Bob mentioned that. Did you mention how many different groups and panels? 5, I think, total. All right. Well, thank you all for coming today. Appreciate it.